All right, now we're live.
Okay.
So, if someone in the chat can confirm, we were having some technical difficulties. I'm hearing Ed, he's hearing me. Um, so once someone confirms, we'll get started with an intro. I'm showing 14 people on through the Collector Art House YouTube channel, which is good. If you're on YouTube, my mom's on the call. So if you're on YouTube, that's better because then I could see like who's commenting. If you're on the Facebook group, it just comes in as Facebook user. So yeah, it sounds like people are hearing us. Raphael from the company is on the call. Go ahead, can say something, Ed. See if they can hear you.
Hello, guys. This is Ed. I'm over here from Pennsylvania in the Dragon Lord Cave.
All right, nice. So I'll do a quick intro just to talk about what we're doing here. So just I guess in the past week or so, it was announced that Ed Bear Jr. On the call here will be doing a mini set for sorcery. So we don't know. Of course, Ed probably knows more details than I do, but it can't be disclosed yet. We're going to leave that for Eric to do that when it's appropriate. But we know that he's doing 10 paintings, and he has done I guess I don't want to call it a sketch because it's such a refined finished product. What would you call it, Ed, at this point where you're at?
We'll give it the technical term, the finished rendering.
All right, so we got a finished rendering, which we're going to reveal after we get to talking a little bit here. So in Ed's Patreon, and actually let me flash that up on the screen. I think I have a handy little link. Yeah, so if you guys check out Ed's Patreon, as soon as he was announced for Sorcery, I went and signed up, and I think like within a day or two, you did your first session. So he's doing all the renderings, and then he's going to do the paintings, and this is something unique for Sorcery. First time we're going to actually see the process live. I think I've shared a ton of process sketches and things, but we've never seen an artist actually create the artistic masterpiece live and take us through that whole process. And you're going to do all 10 over a course of weeks, let's call it. I don't know. Yeah, maybe you can't say the timeline. So there's gonna be many marathon sessions, and Ed's an all-nighter, so he's gonna try to accommodate the Europeans and do it like earlier in the day, like over the course of this coming weekend, and sometimes he does it in the evenings, and the East Coasters are on there. So I attended almost like 2.5 hours. I think the first night it was greatly entertaining. You were very gracious and welcoming. Felt like just hanging out with you in your studio there, so it was a lot of fun. All right, so Ed, do you want to why don't you start with telling us like a little bit about your background? I know a lot of people know who you are, some do not. So can you tell us a little bit about like your art career history for us?
Well, sure. First off, Mike, thank you so much for hosting this. I know you're under the weather and you got fighting a cold and everything. And I won't talk about what you took to try to get through it, but you're a warrior.
Thank you.
So thank you for doing this for me tonight. And because I know this was tough for your schedule. It's very busy right now. We are on my end. I am up against the gun as well because a lot of painting has to be done in a very short period of time, and so I'll be doing literally every single day. So I want to thank you first and foremost. My daughter is in the background. She's going to be my daughter Destiny is always with us when we do the Patreon live, unless she's unavailable. And then we have my wife or my son. But she is always monitoring, questions and answers and inquiries that come on the chat. So she's also monitoring this channel on YouTube just in case a question comes up and neither you or I get to it, Mike. So we've got a lot of backups and buffers, if you will. So my background, I was published first in 1976, 1982, as it says on my hat here. I went into self-employed business. So I've been in business for 41 years now. I have two careers. I always say two careers because I do the van that you see in the background there is the Dragon Lord van. I started doing custom automotive back in 1979 and on and off, well, pretty much through the 80s and early 90s, I was doing that. Then my aspiration always was to get into fantasy art. I mean, that's what we put on our hot rods back in the day. So if it wasn't Boris Vallejo or Frank Frazetta style art, it wasn't barbarians and creatures and monsters, it was something like that. And I was very blessed to live in a time period where every other car, hot rod on the road always had artwork on it. So as a kid, I was constantly surrounded by that. So I got into learning the airbrush, hand pinstriping, lettering, things like that. So I started that career early on, and this is, like I said, 1982. By 1992, 91, 92, I got into comics. I produced my own comic book. I then went into some of the conventions, and I met this guy that said, you really need to go to this thing called Gen Con, because I think your work is perfect for D&D and things like that. So in '92, I submitted as a guest for Gen Con. I wound up going to Gen Con as a guest comic artist. The next year, I was in the process of doing a fantasy art card set, basically a 90 card core set, divided in 3 subsets like science fiction, fantasy, and horror. So I brought all these paintings, these fantasy paintings, to Gen Con in '93. At that time, it was kind of a new thing, this excitement around Wizards of the Coast and Magic the Gathering. And, at that point, they approached me and they said, hey, look, we see what you do here. We'd like to, get you on board, kind of thing. And I kind of wasn't too sure I wanted to do it. So I kind of said no, because I've never been a good investor or ever a good gambler. So I gambled.
We didn't know at that time. No, it was a gamble.
It offered like $50 with some shares, and I'm like, a share on a company that's worth nothing. What do I want to do?
Yeah.
Boy, did I make a mistake. So next year they hit me up again, and then that's how I got into the Magic the Gathering. 1994 being, actually late '93, commissioned to do Legends. And so from that point on, 11 or I think it was 115 cards, some of them unpublished, different unglued sets, unhinged, and whatever it was. And I had a great 11 years, it was a lot of fun. Things changed as the time was going by and the digital age was coming in. Everything became more streamlined. It was getting away from hand craftsmanship with hand painted work. And that's what I do. I want to make sure every piece I do has a one of a kind original. Not only is it economically savvy, I make money when I sell it, but I just love that handcrafted, process, and I've been a teacher since like 1982. And, I've had students over the years, hundreds of them, and I mentor a lot of things. I go to colleges and I do seminars, and it's always been about how important it is to do live demonstrations, and that it's not always about the end result. It's also about the process. So with that being said,
one question on that. Did you learn how to do digital and just choose not to pursue it, or did you insist on traditional all the time?
No. So I got Photoshop when it came out. First, I think my first Photoshop 4, and then went through everything up to DS. I used Photoshop for my box designs, packaging, whenever I needed to color adjust, because I was doing licensing for fantasy, science fiction, and horror for Spencer Gifts, and when Hot Topic first came out, in the record label companies, Strawberry Records, things like that. You go to the poster racks, you'd see my stuff. So many of the companies I licensed my art for in the 90s would require a tweak, a change, a resizing, add something, take something away. So I had to do digital editing because I wasn't about to mess with the original painting. So I learned, because it's a great tool for that. It's an excellent tool for graphic design, layout, box layout, all of this kind of stuff. However, that being that tool, I learned Illustrator too, because you needed to learn vector art to do a lot of the banners and sign and all that stuff. So yeah, I spent about 2 or 3 years training myself to learn those programs, and they're very effective for that purpose. But I always said, if I'm being commissioned to do a cover of a calendar or calendar interiors like I did for Barnes and Nobles and Borders for many, many years, the Dragon calendar, there's no need for me to do it digitally when I can hand paint it, scan it. The publisher is satisfied with a digital file. I get to keep the original painting and sell it to some collector for thousands of dollars. So it makes no sense to me, both economically and as far as the preservation of the craft of hand painted work. Not to mention, I was just entering the Renaissance fairs and some of the shows. I was always doing live demonstration. And there's nothing more exciting than to watch an artist or an author, a musician, anybody doing stuff the hard way, where every brushstroke counts, because it's critical. And you have to know exactly where to put it, because you're concentrating on all composition, spatial relationship, negative, positive space. And you got to know your stuff. And it takes decades to train your mind to have that on the fly. You don't have, like what you do in a digital environment, endless editing. So it's a performance art, right? So when even when I'm at the Comic Cons, I'm up on stage and I'm drawing with Sharpie marker. There's no reference. There's no pencil sketch. You doing a Sharpie marker, it's unforgiving. There's no second chance. And I said this one of my shout out Facebook, I said, it's like walking a tightrope without a net. And that's, it's not about, it shouldn't be always about the end result, that final product. That's great for the company who wants to cut corners, make everything streamlined, save money. Speed is the factor. That's efficiency. But fun is not about efficiency. And I believed in the gaming industry, or as well as any of my licensed products, that we should have a synergy between hand craftsmanship and fine art, as well as publication and commercial application. there's no reason to have one without the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, honestly, I did some demonstrations with my Photoshop digital. I duplicated a painting that I had done that was in full paint, and I did it with digital. And I pretty much simulated the look. And I'm like, big deal.
Well,
I spent just, even if I saved some time, I've now got nothing to show for it except a bunch of pushed pixels.
Yeah.
Again, it depends on where the perspective of what you're coming from. I'm coming from the point of I'm a craftsman. I like producing a tangible product. So that's how we are where we're at right now, because that pretty much got pushed out. I can tell you that by 2001, 2002, Wizards of the Coast was really pushing digital. They were sending not only style guides, but palette suggestions, palette color comps and things that were already in profiles, if you will, that could be added, whether it was Painter Program or Photoshop. This is what we want. Here's the style guide. This is the color scheme we're all wanting to look at. Everything was looking homogenized. The creativity and the uniqueness and the diversity of styles and technique was going out the window. So for me, as someone who values that and wants to celebrate that, I could tell it just wasn't going my way. And I'm like, you know what? Magic at Wizards was representing a very small percentage of my income. Most of my work was between automotive and licensing. So I just thought it was the best time for me to kind of fade out by 2005. So in comes Eric, an email that I get.
Actually, so before you go there, like you say, you did licensing, and so you were never hard pressed on a timeline. Typically, people say most don't do traditional; they do digital because they need it quickly. So do you just create and then you license your work, and you found the work afterward, or do you just work quickly and you're able to meet timeline doing it traditionally?
So I'll tell you about that. So when Wizard started off, it was Jesper Meifers, great guy, great art director, and so he commissioned me for a little while. Then it went into the hands of Dana Knudsen. Dana took over as art director, and I was kind of like a go-to guy for a while there for Dana. He would literally call me on a Thursday night and say, "Hey Ed, we need something overnight. We need you to FedEx it Friday." And it was usually something that either somebody blew a deadline or some last minute mechanics didn't work and they needed to come up with a card, but they knew I could bang it out. And one of those pieces that was literally done overnight was my Psychotog, which became the most broken card in Magic, very popular. I call it a basketball with teeth, right? I did that in about 4 hours. So I was extremely fast at my hand-painted techniques because I developed a technique that I did. Not only is it out of my head, but the particular combination of airbrush, acrylics, drying fast, I was able to bang these pieces out very quickly. So I could tell you this, I wouldn't have been able to do it any faster digitally. So a lot of my students over the decades have said, but digital is so much faster. Not if you train yourself in hand-painted techniques. You can be just as fast. And like I said, why not? If you can. I mean, there are some things that digital is absolutely necessary for, whether it's animation, obviously 3DO programs, so forth and so on. But for a static two-dimensional product image, box cover, calendar, I didn't see the need. I was just looking at it like, I'm just going to focus on my licensing, focus on continuing to supply new art for my fairs and Renaissance fairs and my shows, which I do make a lot of the income I make from that, and continue to get back into automotive full steam. And that's the way it was up until 6 months ago.
Yeah, and you were like probably a couple decades almost into your career before digital even really came to the fore, right? So like you're already kind of like a pro. So I could see how a younger person might benefit more from digital, being able to redo things and play with concepts and whatnot. But you can work quickly, like you said, sketch, finish renders, like we'll see later. We'll see. I haven't seen you paint yet, but I can't wait to see that. Starts tonight, right after this stream at 9 o'clock. Yeah, so the link's here, guys. You need to join his Patreon and see him in action. It's truly amazing. But okay, yeah, interesting intro. So we're at the point where Eric gives you a call.
Yeah, so Eric gives me a call. Well, actually, because he's obviously in New Zealand, so he sends me an email. I get this email, and it talks about how I've followed your stuff. I've got your old artist proofs. I've loved your work since back in Legends and Magic, and I would really love to have you a participant in this project. We've already released the card game via Kickstarter. Here's a little bit of the information. So I did some homework, looked it up, saw it on Kickstarter, saw that it was an incredibly successful the most successful card game fundraising wise that anyone's ever seen on Kickstarter. But then all of that meant nothing to me because all I was looking at was like, I have no desire to get back into the card business. First off, it's economically not worth it for me. And then I'm not into that. I don't go to Gen Con anymore. I certainly don't go to Origins anymore. So I'm like, there's no market for me. And I just thought to myself, but then I read some more and I hear 100% hand painted tangible mediums, this whole entire set. So now I'm sitting there going, are you kidding me? This guy actually pulled this off. He raised 4 million, whatever that was, and did it, producing a hand painted entire set of almost 400 cards or whatever it is. And I was just like mind blown. So that alone, just on principle, I went, this will never happen again in my lifetime, because it hasn't happened. The last time, the best I can remember, and I'm thinking to like mid 90s, 95, 96, when Photoshop progressed. I'm thinking maybe at the very latest, 98, we started to see a lot of digital work come into play. By CS1, when Photoshop CS came out, it was very prevalent. So let's call it 99. Either way, that's 23 to 28 years ago that there has been, well, I should say the last time 100% hand painted set, probably 1994, 95. So we're looking at almost 30 years since a 100% handcrafted tangible piece of a product, let alone a card set, came out. And I'm like, he wants me to do this special thing that's a mini set, all dedicated to my work. He mentions, Eric mentions, I understand you got a Dragon Lord van, you have this Dragon Lord character, give me some input on it. And so now we start talking, and I go, that's exciting. First off, the fact that you did this hand painted, celebrating hand painted craftsmanship. I'm like, I'm all about this. I'm in right on that. That alone, I'm in. What can I do for you? How do we work this out? And then it's like, how do we connect my characters that I created about 10 years ago? And how does it work? And the synergy between what I did with my storyline and my characters work with his game, and how we're going to bridge that. And so we chatted about that. And we're still chatting about that as we evolve. We did come down to the 10 paintings that I'm going to do for this mini set, as it's being called. So I was like, yeah, I have to do this, because number one, he's giving me such creative freedom within the confines of the subject matter, the Dragon Lord and dragons related, other things, not just dragons. But I'm going to get to do things that I haven't had the chance to do in forever. And now I have that opportunity. And I get to do them in huge format. The largest paintings I ever did with Magic the Gathering was during Ravnica, my last set I was there. I think it was like a 14 by 17 painting. The smallest one is an 1824 on this. And I'm going to be doing even bigger. So the opportunity to do such large canvases, this is like, for me, it's kind of an opus moment. It's the last opportunity I can think in my lifetime. I know one thing, approaching 60 years old now. I'm not looking at too much down the line that I want to be on any deadline or otherwise, I feel this is what a wonderful time in my life, because I did start off in the days of tangible, analog, right? Analog. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we had phones with cords. I remember when the first Qualcomm cell phone came out, I was already in business 12, 15 years by that time. So I did live 25 years or 24 years of my life in an art career, going door to door and, doing it the old school way, where there was no internet. You didn't know how to get in touch with other people. Everything had to be through word of mouth. And so then the internet opens up and the whole world changed. So I did see my career transition, but I also knew that I didn't want to sacrifice that craftsmanship of hand-painted work and switch over to digital just because that's what everyone was requesting of me, when it didn't need to be done that way. And fortunately, I was blessed to have a lot of companies that were still like, hey, Ed, we don't care how this image is done. We just want a cool looking artwork piece. As long as you can get into a digital file, we'll use it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, when you called me last week, you touched on the point that this feels like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I had mentioned to you, some people might not know, they think that the Kickstarter did like $4 million, right? So Eric didn't just flip a switch and start commissioning then. He actually fronted 6 figures of his own money, and not just with a 1 in front. I think like several $100,000 in commissions, because there's going to be 400 cards in the introductory set. So he was just paying for these painting commissions. There's, I think, maybe 35 artists or so for Alpha. And then you're coming in with the mini set, which of course has to be after Alpha, because they're almost done printing Alpha already. We don't know exactly how this will work in or when, but Just the fact that someone had the financial means to do that and to commit to doing fully traditional hand painted. It's kind of funny. Like one of his employees would always joke, like, "Oh, guys, we're coming out with NFTs next week," and I was like, "If you do that, I quit now. I'm out." So like the people that are into sorcery are, a lot of people are into the gameplay and it's got a great gameplay element, but the people that are into the art side love it because it is all traditional. So yeah, we can totally resonate with what you're talking about. When we see digital, it just doesn't feel the same. Actually, when you did your promo video earlier today to promote the event we're doing here, you were talking about how, like what you just said, like walking the tightrope, it's all on the line. There's just like, and plus like just the personality comes across. You were talking about how you just create it from your own imagination, which takes, that was a question I was going to ask you. Actually answered it earlier today. Like how could you possibly not use a reference? And just like when I close my eyes, I see nothing. But you, as like a 3-4 decades years of experience, you've seen it all. You've studied it. You put the time in. I think you said you put in like millions of hours probably over the course of that span. So you just know what a dragon should look like, know what these different creatures should look like, all the different themes that you do. Any comments on that?
It takes it when I was very young, 11 years old, I had read up on the great masters of the Renaissance, and I looked at what they did, and of course they all studied anatomy. And I thought to myself, well, if I want to draw this way, if I want to be good at what I'm doing, and especially creating creatures that don't exist, I have to understand all of the comparative anatomy, and I have to do it in a medical way. So I started taking anatomical physiology, medical illustration. I actually did medical illustration for attorneys and law firms, all kinds of stuff. So I started studying Latin. I studied bird, bat, reptile, horse anatomy, like a veterinarian would do. I sat in on dissection classes at the local hospital. This is the kind of extent that I went. And I said, you know what? Because if I don't do it the right way, 100%, and understand the mechanics behind it, not just what it looks like visually, I have to be able to turn a body in my mind and have to know exactly what every single muscle fold is as I rotate it. So I thought about that and I said, all right, time to practice. I'll take the hand in a straightforward view and I will take a pad of 25 sheets of paper and I will use my reference at first for the one drawing. Draw it, try to memorize every line as much as I could. Turn the page, remove the reference, try to do it from my memory. I would get stuck. The point that I got stuck, I would bring the reference back out and I would focus on that one point. Then I would do it again. I kept repeating this process until I no longer forgot and I remembered every point. And what I didn't realize is later on in life, I started becoming friends with some people who were dealing with, brain injuries and neurology and so forth. And they said, you know what you were doing, Ed? You're doing the physical therapy that we actually do for patients who have brain injury. It's called mapping the mind. And he says, you're creating synapses, kind of like trains linking to each other. And I'm like, I just did what I knew would help me memorize. So yeah. I did that for thousands of hours. And inevitably, I do have a library in my mind. The only time I get into a situation where you need to have reference in positions that you would never be. Like I'm not at a 10-story building looking down all the time. So I won't have that in my mind. Mm-hmm. And then I wouldn't have something that is very specific to let's say it's a historically accurate thing. Well, you got to use reference for that. There's nothing wrong with reference for that. But the beauty of doing stuff that's in the fantasy world is much of it doesn't exist. And if you do have this Rolodex in your mind, library, if you will, you can perform live in front of people with confidence and know where things go. And you don't have to just sketch out and thumbnail and all this stuff. Keep in mind, when I was about 9th grade, I was pretty well advanced at that time. By the time I was from 11 to 14, I had already spent hundreds of hours, thousands of hours in developing my skills. So I was doing portraiture and even portraitures for commissions and all this stuff. And I got into school and my art teachers hated me with a passion because I wanted to stick a skull in that fruit bowl. Or I took, the bicycle tire and I'd put a snake around it and they would grade it F. They would kick me out. They constantly knock me down. And I got kicked out of art class in 9th grade and therefore art school, never got the academic thing. So I don't do the underpainting techniques. Nothing I do is like anyone ever does, that's traditionally trained. And because I found more streamlined techniques to be able to work quicker and at the same time utilize the combination of airbrush with hand painted. So I just developed my own skill sets and I started teaching them. And it was hilarious that, here, 45 years later, when everyone in the last 20 years, I'd say certainly in the digital world used to say, Ed, you're going to be obsolete. you're gonna go buy like the horse and buggy, and here I'm still here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's amazing that you never formally trained and taught, and here you are now teaching others, just from your own hard work and self education. There's actually several artists in sorcery that working for Alpha that are the same way. They just developed a skill. They haven't been classically trained, and they're doing amazing work. Everyone's got their own style, and it's coming together beautifully. So it's
yeah,
pretty
I
exciting.
reached out to some. Now many of them I know, personal friends of mine like Melissa.
Mhm.
Then there's you got Drew Tucker that's on board. Some of the old schoolers. Then there's Elvira, and you just had her on your page. Which, by the way, the Collective Art House. What you're doing is phenomenal because you're celebrating the handcrafted art. You're talking about it with collectors and would-be collectors, with the artists. You're giving them a platform to promote their work. So many of them are international. There was this gentleman from the Philippines. Gadu is his name. Gadu?
Yeah, he's on the call. Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Gadu's, he was just so very, very kind and gracious. I mean, he reached out to me. So this is what's so awesome is for the first time in decades, you have a body of gamers who are loving the gameplay, loving the mechanics, but at the same time have this ability to finally have a resource of original art that they have not had in decades. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. This is actually Elvira's painting right here. It came in yesterday. We're going to auction that one next week.
Awesome.
So
Oh,
yeah, Mike.
Is that the Arthurian legend one?
No, we think that's going to be an alpha. It's kind of interesting because I think I'm speculating. I don't know this for a fact, of course, but I think Eric has planted like thematic seeds in alpha that will in a gameplay sense will then add like some flavor in the follow up set for Arthurian Legends, and then he kind of hinted at a light and dark. I think he called it light and dark or angels and demons, something to that effect, to come maybe next year or something. But yeah, there's like these elements that are in alpha because alpha's got like all these different. There's no singular lore. You were talking earlier how Magic kind of pigeonholes you into like not to slam Magic. There's probably a lot of Magic fans on the call, but they force you into like a certain myopic theme. Whereas Eric's whole philosophy is to keep it wide open, and you kind of tell your own story as you're playing the game, and you discover your own story through the art. So, and now yours is a very unique situation where you're getting a whole mini set, and you actually already have a story in your mind and like somewhat documented that's going to come to light through your paintings now. And then, did you mention you're working on an art book that'll tell the story in writing as well?
Yeah. So my first art book was out in 2004, and all these decades have gone, 18 years, and I just always find something else to do that's commissioned me. So I've been taken away from that project, but in the last 2 years, I went really back to putting it together, getting it together, because it's 18 years worth of work, and I've had to cut out so much stuff. And now I think I've got it down solid. And I did take my stories, not just for the 10 paintings I'm going to do now under the Dragon Lord theme, but I have other stories. I write short stories, biographies, kind of worlds, if you will, stories to justify the paintings that I do. So I'm having this good friend of mine, Ryan Rosenbaum, who is a tremendous author, does great work. And he's already done a few, I think 4 or 5 of my pieces, kind of like mini novellas or a little graphic novel. So I'm going to include those in the book so that we have storylines to what is it that these paintings you're looking at, what are they saying? Because many of my pieces are very scenic, and you can tell there's something going on. What's the story behind it? Because I don't tend to do a lot of just, static shots of like, hey, look at me. It's a focus on one figure. I tend to do interactive scene, or there's something else going on, and we got to have a story behind this. So, and I take those concepts and stories from history. There's one piece I did. It's called the Moon Song. I'm going to take the phone off and show it to you. Okay, I'm going to turn this around. All right. Can you see that?
Yeah, I had to come off mute. Yeah, looks good.
So that is a wolf and a dragon that looks like a wolf. This is called Moon Song. This has become one of my most famous pieces for licensing. It's been licensed thousands of times in cell phone covers, all kinds of stuff. This whole concept, it came from my watching a television show about ancient Aztecs and Mayans and how they believed the concept of the transference of the soul to the next world was handled by this dragon wolf character. In addition, in South America and into North America, the early American Indians had the same concept of the belief of the wolf as ferrying the soul during the winter solstice. So I said, what a great concept to put together and create a painting, something no one had ever done. So that's just one example of some of the things that I do.
Yeah, I love that. I love that concept. I love like a howling wolf, and that's super cool in front of the dragon.
Yep.
But
So I love that. A lot of the stories that are taken from actual history, and then they move beyond that. And sometimes completely created from my own concepts of what would I imagine, this character having done. Why is it doing it? Who is the protagonist? And try to do that kind of a thing with it. But yeah. Do you want to take a tour around the Dragon Lord?
yeah, absolutely. People are pumped up for that. Yeah.
Destiny, we got the light on the other side, so when we get to the back side, we'll do that.
Sounds good.
All right.
Oh man.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you could touch on like how, I guess I misunderstood it on your first Patreon. How much does it relate to the 10 pieces you're going to do for sorcery or not
Sure.
as you're going there?
Very little. There's only, it doesn't, the pieces, the images that are on this, I think you're looking at the hood now, right? Yeah. I'm trying to see, I have to look like you do. There you go. All right. So you see the hood.
Yeah, that looks good.
Right. So there is nothing within the body of the vehicle, this van, that's actually characters that are going to be in these 10 paintings, except the visor, which is the Dragon Lord. So I'll tell you the story that the Dragon Lord is all about. He's really just, he's kind of a titan, if you will. He is an early celestial being, if you will. And he was the one to come to Earth and create the very first dragons at the very beginning of time. Now I'm trying to guess where I am. Can you see that head up there?
If you want, we might be able to switch over to the other camera.
Can you see that?
Yeah, that looks really good, actually.
Okay. So that is the only part of this whole entire van that is actually a character that is being transferred over into the real world. But even that slightly modified. But this is essentially the character of the Dragon Lord, and at least a portion of it. So the van takes a little bit of a different story. It's about the creation of dragons and how things happen. So in the beginning, the lava dragons, the fire dragons were born, and you can see some of the fire sprites. This is in the very beginning of time. And so then as time goes by, thousands of years pass, beyond the fire elementals, the great cool down occurs. And here you have the Ice Age emerging. So with the Ice Age, you have the ice dragons. Now this is on the passenger door. I think I'm in.
Yep.
Okay. I'm guessing because I can't see what you're
No,
seeing.
it looks good. Yeah. Is this a functional van, or is it just sit in your studio here? Do you cruise around town with this or go to your shows with it?
Oh yeah. This went to SEMA. SEMA is the kind of like the premier. It's the Golden Globes, if you will, of automotive shows. Jay Leno goes there, all those guys, Danny Counts Customs. This drove cross country 60 miles and back to go to Vegas for SEMA. So now this is my daily driver when it's good weather.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yep. So now we have, when the cool down, the warm up happened, it inevitably turned into the great oceans, and the serpentine dragons emerged. So we have this Asiatic style serpentine dragon. And then as time continued to go through, you have the age of man and magic. And again, I'm going to guess where you are. I think, yeah, you're seeing the castle and the dragon on top of the castle. And what happened as time went by, these great noble intellectual dragons, which were not of these vicious beasts, they were intellectuals, they were living in peace. Well, the great sorcerers knew how to corrupt them and control them by crystals and other forms of pretties. So inevitably, they became corrupted. Now, the backside of the van has the hear no evil, see no evil, and speak no evil, which I can't show you because it's in the dark, but it's my comedy relief. And that was just another example of how the dragons became tormented and inevitably converted and changed. I'm going to come and bring you over to the other side.
Was going from painting on paper and canvas and whatnot to painting on a vehicle like a massive step for you? Like, how did you actually, was it a lot more difficult or similar?
It's totally different process and technique. And I've been doing it since 1979. So it's just, it's different than canvas because you have zero blending. You have to get everything nailed the right place. It's got to be all done with airbrush. And then you go over it. Wow. I don't know if you can see, you have to go over it with a fine line pinstripe brush. I do that. Now, a lot of airbrush artists don't do that. And that's why you get that soft focus. I like the crisp and crystal clear detail. And so you get that by going back in and putting in the brushwork. Destiny, why don't you hit the lights? Let's see what this can do. Down here at the, there you go. Perfect.
Oh, it kind of paused up on us.
There you go.
There we go. We're back. Yeah.
All right. So here this really is my nickel bolus, actually. So on the van is a tribute to a whole bunch of very popular pieces that I did over the career. So this van was painted in 2011 and 12, finished in 2012. It was done over the wintertime. And I tried to select pieces that were very popular that were in licensing and other different products and stuff. So this is my Elder Dragon, who tells the entire story of the history of the Dragon Lord. So on this, the driver's door, that's where you can see him reading the book. All right, so now we go on over here. Here we have the great epic battle between good and evil. I don't know if you can see the whole thing. So you have over here the Reaper, the undead. This is Hellspawn going in. It's kind of an apocalyptic scene. It's 2012, don't forget. Everybody was talking, oh, the end of the world. So I thought, hey, you know what a great way to finish this up by putting the apocalypse in full place and to having Death riding the back of a dragon mare. I think you can see that.
Yeah.
Against the sword of truth being wielded by the Valkyrie, who's riding the back of the purple and white dragon. There you go. Let's see if I can go in. Yeah, I think you're getting a good shot of that.
Yeah, it's coming across pretty good.
Okay. Now, I will be honest with you guys. Her little tushy here did not have that chain. But I got to a couple of car shows, and they kept saying, you got to do something about the tushy.
A little too racy for the car shows? That's surprising.
Yeah. And
Thought that would be in theme.
It kills me because back in the 70s and 80s, man, there was a lot more risque than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
you should see what Eric will let you get away with. That'd be funny.
Oh, no, I'm not pushing that.
Yeah. Just kidding. But he's using some Frazetta artwork that has some stuff that like MTG would never touch. So it's kind of interesting. But.
Yes, I'm very impressed the fact he licensed that. Okay, so inside, even everything is hand painted. This is the door panel on the inside. So it's the lava dragon. And then even down to the step-ups, hand painted to make it look like stone. I think you guys can see that.
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dustin, with the lights inside. So you see up top there, that is the CB holder, and that's carved wood and hand painted. You've got the dash that's hand painted.
Did you have a speaker there, so when you're coming down the road, you could announce Ed Bear Jr. is coming through?
No.
Yeah, that'd be funny. I had a friend that had a truck like that in college, and he would drive through the middle of campus yelling stuff. It'd be hilarious.
That is funny.
Yeah.
I will say this: it's tough to get out of a gas station with this thing.
Yeah.
Once I'm in a gas station, it gets a crowd. I'll never forget one time, a guy with his girlfriend, and the girlfriend starts posing in front of the.
Oh, you froze up again.
Keep losing signal.
Oh, there we go.
All right, we're back. So this is
So when you pull up to a truck, like it's probably hit or miss if they know who you are, right? Did they say where'd you get that done? And then you got to tell them.
Oh yeah, you got to go through the whole thing. Yeah,
that's funny.
But there's your ice dragon side. So this side is the ice side. Again, the step ups. We've got a little extra stuff over here, and then Destiny, throw the shot inside there. So there you see the ice side. So it's fire and ice on the inside. I'll show you the. Oh, by the way, that's my George guy with his head off.
He's headless.
Inside, it's a very comfortable environment in there. Go ahead, Destiny, with the lights. So you can see it's got a big side bed.
Oh, wow.
And this is the old style.
Oh, we lost signal for a moment.
I don't think so. All right, we're back again.
Oh, yep, we got you.
I have no idea why it's losing signal. We got full signal here. Very weird. All right, so these are the oil can, fire can, again, hand painted. These are all over 100 years old. So these are antiques.
Wow.
Hand painted. And then, of course, we got artwork that I did for, Tia Matt over there on the wall and different art from the calendars I did over the decades. But yeah, so when I'm on the road with this, it's definitely an eye catcher, and it's not something that you can get into a gas station and out quickly with. No. No, you can't.
Yeah, that's stunning, man. It's unbelievable. All the detail inside and out. That's really incredible. So do other people do this at these art shows, or is this kind of like unique to you?
So in the automotive industry, the customized automotive industry, I I don't know anyone else who's doing both custom automotive and has been doing it for 40 years plus me, like I am, and at the same time doing fantasy and licensing and gaming. I think they're either in one or the other. So I don't know anybody personally. I've known some airbrush artists who have been in the gaming industry who have dabbled in it a little bit, but to the extent that I do. So I've been on a lot of television when it, Mav TV, the History Channel, and so I will, whether it's I'm at a car show in Alabama for ACC Performance, which is Nelson Gill's place, Boss Hog Torque Converter, or I'm over at SEMA and I'm being interviewed by the guys from, let's see what it would be. I think it was bangshift.com and a whole bunch. So on the automotive cable television networks and things like that, where they feature specialty vehicles, that's where I make my appearances. I bring in, I've done many more vehicles than this. And so we had a 55 Moonshiner, so a 1955 Chevy Moonshiner that was at SEMA a couple of years back. And that got a lot of attention. It's been on different television shows. And so I'll come in and I'll be interviewed and I'll take them on tour on the, around the vehicle. So I'm actually working. That's another thing I'm doing right now is when I do the next vehicle I'm doing, everything's getting 4K recorded because it's going to be compiled to be able to be content for a future show on some other channels I can't even talk about right now, but we're working on that. So I have material from the last vehicle I did, which was a Mitsubishi Evo race car, which was the Fire and Ice Dragons, because Japanese dragon vehicle. So that was a race car that was converted to a custom car. So I have a totally different career and a whole different fan base that knows me for my automotive. But I will say this, the hot rodders and, guys that are in, whether guys and girls that are into hot rods or race cars are more likely to be D&D players as well as card gamers than card gamers are to be hot rodders.
Yeah, I can see that. Just the demographic you find at a local game store isn't the same you find at hot rodding around.
Quarter-mile track. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
Some do.
So, like, do you have like a portfolio or a gallery of other cars you've done and stuff? I was frantically looking at your website trying to find that, and I didn't come across it.
Yeah, Destiny is going to put it up for you. She'll type it in, but it's airbrushbybeard.com. So airbrush.
Oh, it's a different website. Okay.
Yeah, totally different website.
That explains it.
You'll see Rutledge Wood with me, some of the celebrities from television shows and stuff, and you'll see all the different vehicles. I took this across country. We went Route 66. We had a camera crew with us. They filmed. We were doing what was it? I think it was the Eagles album. We stopped at the corner of Winslow, Arizona.
Yeah.
So, this is a 2000 Dodge van, by the way. It's not as old as it looks. It's meant to look. We've dressed it up with a front chin spoiler and a visor and of course a rear spoiler to make it look kind of 70s-ish. But it's actually Dodge. So it's one of the very few times do you get to see these versions, the B1500s, converted into a fantasy or a hot rod van. And it's
funny. It looked brand new to me. I didn't even notice the body style because I'm so mesmerized by the art. So I had no idea. That's funny.
Yep.
But
so anyways,
awesome.
But yeah, I kind of, like I said, I enjoy two different worlds. And I've always told my students, it's so important to be diversified. And it's the same thing, when we speak about the gaming industry, the whole time I was working for the game companies, and I was art directing for Z-Man Games for a while, a couple of other smaller companies that came and went. And I think in total, I did about 1,000 game cards altogether. There were so many during the early 90s and mid 90s, come and go card games. And I mean, it's just so much art and it's pirates. And, I think Alderac had done the pirate game, Seven Seas, all that stuff. So there was tons of that art, but I still had to do my work for the licensing industry because I knew that was where my real money was. And at the same time, I was trying to keep my automotive going. I really pushed away from automotive in the mid 90s to early 2000s and then got back into it full force by 2009, 10, 11. And since then, that's where I'm at. And that's why we redid this garage into this big studio, to make it a little more appealing, for when we do our recordings and stuff.
Yeah. So you mentioned you've been out of cards for 18 years or so.
Yeah.
This is like
The
your
last
first time
card
you've done it. Wow.
before was Ravnica from Magic the Gathering, and it was 2005.
Oh. Okay.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. So Eric so he called you up and he said all traditional hand painted, and you were into it right away.
Right there, I was like, I
Yeah.
got to be on this. We got to figure out how we can make this work. And so to answer your question clearly, other than that visor, none of the other art is part of any of the subjects I'm doing. Everything I'm doing,
Okay.
100% new stuff, new subjects, new paintings that I've never done before, that were part of a creative story that I did that I just never got a chance to do. And I'm not going to talk about those and what they are, but you'll see those on my Patreon. We'll see them as they develop, but everything's got to be done pretty quick. I've got to work around the clock to get this stuff in time, because, whether it's hand painting or digital, doesn't matter. It takes time to bang out these things one after another. But when you're hand painting, you're dealing with a very large format. I'm doing large paintings, so they're going to take more time. And the drawings, as you've seen, because you've been on my Patreon, they're more elaborate than the typical sketches, but they're being done that way for a specific reason, which is not only to have a nice high-end original black and white piece, because between Eric and my kids, there's going to be very little art available to buy. So I got to do black and white.
So your kids collect your art? Do you have a vast portfolio, Destiny, of your dad's work there? You're just starting, right?
She has coveted everything that's Gothic Empire, because my daughter's a musician and a vocalist, and she's the only lead singer. She was the only lead singer for Midnight Syndicate. Midnight Syndicate was a soundtrack company that had been in the industry, did the Dungeons and Dragons soundtrack and several other. They've been around for now, I think it's 20, 25 or 30 years, right?
25 years, yeah.
Yeah. So that's her thing. That's her niche. So, Dad had to do the album covers, of course.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Like, that's dark and Gothic, she grabs.
Yep.
What else did you grab?
A lot. Any of the dragons are like, especially that whole like sort of Gothic feel. And then, of course, I was going to say, Mom has all the fairies. That's her deal. So she has all the fae.
And then, of course, my son, he loves all of the bizarre, weird, eldritch kind of character creatures that were done through the years. Anything mechanical and mechoid, because, he's 26, and it's that age group that just loved that stuff. What's the name of that game character that he loved to play, that he loves? Mega Man. Anything Mega Man. So he goes after, and so they plucked a lot of my Gathering original stuff. Although I did have 100 pieces, so I do still have some stuff. But these guys, these are big paintings. There'll be some that will be available, but I wanted to make sure we had fully rendered drawings, so that way, hey, if you don't get the canvas, at least you can get a really high-end drawing.
Yeah, at least I could get the sketch if I can't have the painting. That's fine by me.
Nope. You cut off.
Yeah, it's a render. It's definitely a rendering and not a sketch. I think people are going to be shocked when they see it, because we've seen, like a lot of the other artists are doing rough sketches, getting Eric's approval, and then they move on and they just move right into the painting. And then some have never done TCGs at all, and they're just diving right into painting and really rolling the dice. There's some funny stories about how it didn't fit the card frame, and they had to like completely repaint it or paint like on another board piece and digitally, connect it so it would fall under the card title box.
Fortunately,
But yeah.
Eric has given me the schematics of the cards that these paintings are going to be on. So I know their orientation and their format and their size. What I did with the drawings are not always the complete piece. They're actually mostly, like 90% of the time, when I do a preliminary drawing, I do a close-up or a focus on the main character to do a study. That way I feel comfortable with the character. I'm happy. I work out the details on what the costume is going to be, this, that, and everything. So these drawings are more close-up. They're slightly different than the fully painted version. Now, of course, the fully painted version has all of the outside background and everything that Eric would need to be able to fit the card correctly and proportionately. In fact, we went and talked about that. Eric was so excited. I didn't even get the whole drawing done. I had sent him half a torso. And he's like, he popped, it's 5 a.m. You know, 5 in the morning. If it's 5 in the morning here, it's okay. Maybe it's 10 o'clock his time. No. It was like 11, 12 o'clock our time. It was 5 in the morning. So it's 5 o'clock in the morning. The second he's dropped it into the card, he sent it back. He goes, "This is going to look good. This is."
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you haven't got the whole image yet, so it's not going to fit height wise yet. Wait till I get the painting done. You'll see. So
yeah. He probably hasn't slept since the Kickstarter. You know, this game is so international. It happens to me too. I wake up in the middle of the night and stupidly check my phone, and then I get excited for 2 hours and can't fall back to sleep because there's always people like all over the world chiming in on Discord or on the Facebook group or something. There's always some action.
And Mike, that's the other thing. I did have a bit of an international following when I had gone over to Berlin for the World's competitions back in the early days. Wizards would sponsor the artists to go to these events. So I go to some Grand Prix. I went to Grand Prix in Nagoya, Japan, to Berlin for the Worlds. And I got to meet some, German and I think I went to Eindhoven to one of the big game companies, game conventions and stuff. So I did have a bit of a following, but nothing major. So I know this product is very big in the international community. So I'm excited. Yeah. I'm going to guess that there'll be a lot of Sorcery TCG players who will have, maybe if they've played Magic will remember me, but most of them, they won't know. And so to them, it's kind of a whole generation that didn't know anything about my work for 40 years that's going to get a chance to see it for the first time. And it's cool. It's cool to be able to reconnect in that way with the national audience, which is why my Patreon I'm going to do on the weekends, the earlier afternoon, like say 1 or 2 o'clock. So that way it's about 7 o'clock their time. And during the week, we'll handle any of the domestic, North American clients. So.
Yeah, it's a real diverse demographic, like not just geographically, but younger people, middle-aged people. It really resonates strongly with, I think Eric and I are close in age in our early 40s, so we were kind of like young when Magic came out. And now we're having like a midlife nostalgia trip. So we recognized, he went after some of the alpha Magic artists like Jeff Menges and Drew Tucker and Melissa Benson, Jeff Easley, those types. So we heard those names, or at least like fans like me. Eric targeted them, but that's what got me hooked on it. But now I'm just as excited to meet people like Gadu and all these other artists I'm discovering, and even some that have been out of the scene for many years, like yourself. It's kind of like exciting that you're coming back in, and you're, it's compelling enough that you want to get on board. Says a lot.
Oh yeah, man. I would never. There have been many offers over the decades, last years, from different game companies, and they're all the same, and they're very nice people. In fact, another one just a couple of days ago, and it's just not worth it. And the overall exposure and the fact that it's not a hand painted set. This is just. It was like this set was made for me, and it literally was. But there's no way I could say no to this. I had to make this happen. It's the last thing I do, opus of my life. And so, and I think it was Tony. I think his name is Studlow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sudlow. I'm not actually sure. I say Sudlow, but I got to ask him.
Sudlow, yeah. He's involved in the whole thing, and of course, Elvira, Shakarova. Is that her name? Shakarova.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she's got a beautiful, and I want to do a shout out to her. Magnificent detail, great work. You showcased her Arthurian legend piece with the illumination work on the side. The illumination work alone is equal to the painting work. I know because I do illumination, and that's top shelf. That's a double painting in itself right there. That's incredible, and congratulations to you and her for a very respectful amount of money raised. That's the other thing. Your collector's art house, the collector art house, not outhouse, not art house.
We'll rebrand it.
House. It's the art house. But for all of these players who are just starting in the industry, just starting to get into the concept of card game. Maybe they're in their 20s and 30s. And they're going to have a chance to look and follow new artists, learn about hand-painted craftsmanship for the first time. It's probably the first time in their lives, in their digital environment they've lived in for the last 25 or 30 years, that they're actually getting exposed to hand-painted work. So it's almost like a renaissance, while we got AI that's fighting us. And I mentioned this earlier, the two titans, you got AI coming in and the handcrafted coming in with this game. So this is a massive standoff. But at the same time, it's opening doors and opening the world to young people who have never been exposed to tangible art because they've lived their entire lives with everything online digitally. And so they're going to get a chance. And that's why, to me, doing the Patreons, being able to let those members come in and see what I'm doing, just like I do when I do live demonstrations, but also getting the kind of excitement of saying, hey, you know what? I'm one of the members of Ed's Patreon. I get to see these pieces as they're being done. It's a fascinating process, getting interactive, knowing that you can not just watch, but you can ask questions and you can, see my mistakes and see how do I recover from them. That's what's so cool about it.
Yeah, that appeals to a lot of people. I mean, artists that are trying to learn, and you're an expert, so they have a lot to learn from you. Like I don't have any talent. I actually started college in architecture, and I was like, the first year was like a weed out year where they made us like paint and kind of like stand up in front of the class and show them. So like I remember I had to do that. I don't want to get too much into me, but it just reminded me of this tangent that they had to do like a Salvador Dali themed something or other, right? So I came in with something that looked like literally like a child's cartoon painting. Like it was ridiculous because I just didn't have the skill. I had never painted before. So it was like really embarrassing and humbling. But like there was other artists that were great. And anyway, so I never had the talent. So I really respect art and admire people that do it traditionally. So that's the appeal for me. There's people that are novices or don't have the skill like myself that really appreciate it. Because like you say, for years we've been looking at digital art on cards. So this is like foreign to a lot of people over the past 20 years or so. Since early Magic, that was even traditional, but it was also done on tight timelines, and like the technology to image and scan it and whatnot was not the same. So now you can work in larger form. And
yes,
that allows you more intricate detail. It's a whole new ballgame. It's really exciting.
Yes, it is. And that's one of the things that what Eric's done by creating an all tangible medium card set is he's given a new platform and an opportunity for all these artists across the planet to say, you know what? I can get involved in this. I can actually do some tangible work. I haven't had an excuse to do tangible work because everybody's demanding digital from me, but now I have a chance to do something that's tangible. And before you know it, they're going to start to find out what I've known all along, which is there's a lot of opportunities that you can kill the two birds with one stone, do the hand painted work and still find a way to license and make that piece of artwork give you lots of opportunities for income. It's just been, it's just amazing. And also getting back to original Magic, one of the things that was the biggest draw to that product when it first came out is the diversity of style and technique. The fact that you had, look at Drew's work, for instance, and compare it to Melissa Benson. You've got Melissa Benson with a colored pencil technique. You got me with an airbrush and acrylic. You got Drew, which is, I think, a more brush technique, a little bit looser. You had all of these different mediums and styles, and yet they were all fantastic in their own right. And they appealed to different personalities and people that were playing it. And so when they opened the pack, it was exciting as hell to see a similar character, could have been a Javelineer or whatever it was, done in 3 to 4 different ways. Instead of this kind of homogenized, streamlined look that everything kind of blended together like it was a movie. Because, you want to brand, they want to, that's corporate mentality. We'll brand everything. So what Eric has done is he's brought this back. And I've seen some of the alpha cards that have been at least published that have been shown. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, there it is. There it is. It's the diversity of style and technique. So color schemes, there doesn't have to be this consistency, continuity, because that, again, that's boring. You got of Magic originally. And so what happened was they started to get more streamlined towards the later 90s, early 2000s when they were trying to get everything branded so that no one particular artist style stood out above another. You sacrifice the eclectic diversity that people love. And that's what Eric has brought back to the gaming community is this excitement to see, whoo, look at this guy's technique. Look at her technique. It's totally different. And yet it works regardless. Because
yeah, and that's done very intentionally. Like the whole Sorcery is all about being a throwback to that golden era of early TCGs when the Phenom in the early 90s. And you can only do that through traditional painting. And like you say, when we open the packs, it's going to feel a lot different than getting a homogenous, like samey type of feel where every card looks, a little tweaked, but roughly the same. They're all very different. And then like people like to collect in binders, and it's like having an art book, once you fill your binder sleeves with all this very diverse styles and whatnot and approaches. So yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, let's do the reveal.
Okay. So behind.
Are you gonna say? Are you able to say the title of it or? Okay, yeah.
We've already done that. So, all right, let me take
Yeah.
this.
Okay.
I'm going to show you the black and white first, and then we'll show you a real quick snippet of what I've already done first painting. This is actually for even my Patreon members have seen it, but it's only going to be a blip because it's not finished by any means, just based out. It's what we call the block-in technique. All right, here we go.
Do you want me to hold the phone?
Actually, if you could hold the phone.
Yeah.
Here, stand over there.
Okay.
All right, so just hold the phone until I reveal, and then I'm going to take it from you and I'll move in.
All right.
Okay. So the first card is called the Dragon Lord himself. So it is the Dragon Lord. And in my world, in the storyline that I created, he is this kind of celestial being. He's far more powerful than even Thanos, if you will, but not quite an elemental or a celestial. But he was the one who formed the first of the dragon's creatures, but he also created other creatures too. Needless to say, we'll move this aside. All right. All right, Destiny, let me go ahead and take this. Look at my hand. Okay. All right, so I'm going to, there we go. I'm going to get it back. Let's see if I can get a good angle of it. Can you see it there now?
Yeah, that's good right there.
Right there. Okay. So yes, Dragon Lord himself. This is the preliminary drawing and sketch, fully shadowed. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I think you can see his head now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are flipping out in the comments. They're excited.
Nice.
Yeah, that emblem that's on his belt as you work your way down there, is that the same that was like on the inner door of your van?
Yep.
Or similar?
Yep. Good job.
Yeah, I recognize that. Yeah, that's awesome.
So this is a close-up of the actual painting. The actual painting has a lot more border work. It goes out about 2.5, 3 more inches there. Same on the other side, and it's a lot taller on the top and the bottom because he has wings. These wings here, and you have, on the actual painting, you'll see. I'm going to show you what I do in my technique of airbrush, so you're going to see what I mean by the overall body. So, anyways, so there you go. There is your first reveal.
Face reveal.
Yeah, they're already speculating. Is this an avatar? We want to. The players want to know how this is going to manifest its way into the game. I know you can't say.
Not going to happen. Nope, not going to happen. You guys don't know.
You won't believe what happens.
You won't believe what happens next, but you're not going to either.
Yeah.
All right. Giving this back.
So this is the Dragon Lord, the main character, and the one correlation to the van, and then then there'll be some connection perhaps to the other pieces. There it is, guys. Wow.
See the head. That is what's on the top of the visor of the van, but everything else is entirely unique. And of course, you can see he's casting spell. You see these elemental, they're spirit-like, the very beginning forms of dragons that are coming together there, and they're all different elementals. So that is the preliminary.
Yeah, and I just wanted to remind everybody that this was like nothing 3 days ago. Like, you've been going hard in your Patreon, these marathon sessions for several hours. We're all watching it happen. He started from like a clean slate, blank canvas, just like staring at this Artie's old thing here. And I was like, wait, where's the reference photo? And he's like, there's no reference photo. It's all in his mind.
Yeah. In this one, I mean, I could have got up and looked up there, but there's not much there.
Yeah.
No, it's pretty much, I have known what I wanted to do with this character. Now, I will tell you this, though. One of the things that Eric needed was a cloak. And because he has wings, I'm like, okay, I have to divide it up and split it, kind of like a gargoyle. He's a kind of a mix between a humanoid dragon and gargoyle. And so that had to be incorporated, slightly tweaking my original intent, which was to not have a cloak or a robe. But I love it. He's much more badass with his robe,
Yeah.
So, show you real quick. Destiny, let me grab it.
Okay.
Because this is, now remember, when I do airbrush work, I block in the characters, especially if they're in a dark background. So this painting is done with a dark background. The whole canvas was painted black at first. And then I have to block in with like a silhouette the main character. That way I can do the background first. So when you airbrush, you have to, in effect, create a frisket to block off certain characters to be able to airbrush and work on the background without overspraying on your main characters. So what you're going to see here and what I'm going to be working on tonight on Patreon is starting to put in the details. So right now, all you're going to see is the background above his head and then the actual figure blocked in, barely some indication lines of where the body is, as you've seen in the sketch. So they have
Wow. Nice.
the canvas. Let me see if Destiny, would you hold this for me? This way, I think I can do it better this way. So you can see here the kind of like galactic or space with both fire and different types of. You see the embers, the flecks of embers, because he's forging new, the fire dragons, and then you just see some slight indications. You see those little teeny airbrushed indications of the body.
Yep.
That's all you get.
Yeah. Wow.
And tonight I'll be putting in the actual colors, and we work from dark to light. We'll start putting in the mid-tones and then slowly build up highlights until it just pops. And but for now, when I look at it, and my whole family looked at it, it's like kind of reminds me of Chernobog, coming out of a mountain thing.
Yeah, it's you guys got like the Patreon starts at $5. It's like invaluable in my mind. I was just blown away, and like I've seen a lot of like what do they call it? The accelerated like process videos that people do, and that's kind of cool, but it happens like so quick you don't get a full appreciation for it. Or you can go to a show like you do and do an exhibit and you're doing it live in front of people, but we're going to be able to see all 10 pieces all the way through. So if you're into sorcery or if you're into art on any level, I think it's amazing. And it's really fun hanging out with you guys. You and your daughter have great chemistry. I hope my daughter still likes me at that age. She's 8 years old, and I think she's like getting over me already. But
you will.
Yeah, you guys are a lot of fun to hang out with, and it's a great experience.
That's the thing. We try, it's like we do our break in the middle, we do a gift away type thing, and we'll, we throw the lights on. This whole thing becomes a disco. It's hilarious. That's a light. This is just one example of what I'm talking about. Go ahead.
There we go. Look at that.
And so this is what'll happen here. Patreon.
Bring it down.
So, and Destiny composes the music. Oh, by the way, this is so cool. Tonight, if you're on my Patreon tonight, you're going to get to see it. Destiny created a soundtrack for the Dragon Lord. It's so... Yes, I gave her some basic description of the whole concept, and she created the music. It is like you feel like you're in the presence of the cosmos, and here comes emerging, rising, coming down from the cloud, the Dragon Lord.
Yeah, her music's really incredible. I wish I could learn that because my videos feel a little boring. Like I gotta acquire some royalty-free music or pay Destiny for. Do you license your stuff and let like YouTubers use it?
Yeah.
I need some of that. It's so good.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, she's done a lot of podcasts. Eerie Travels. Mark Muncy.
For their YouTube series.
Yeah, they're very popular. YouTube. They follow cryptics across the country. Bigfoot and all those different. But yes, that's beyond her vocals. She does that, and when she did this for the Dragon Lord, I went, holy crap, because my son. Yes, I just wanted a lawyer and a doctor for kids, but no, they have to follow the creative arts. So my voice actor, he's done commercials for Warframe, for digital entertainment and stuff. That's a very popular game. He did that for years. Now he has his own channel, and his voice is epic. So he's going to do narration. When we're done with these 10 paintings, basically, even the first painting, and I talked to Eric about this, and he's pretty cool with it as well. I think what we're going to do is going to have my daughter do that soundtrack she performed. My son will do kind of whatever introduction and vocal that Eric wants that comes up with a script for. So we're going to, when we present this, start promoting it and marketing it to the Sorcery TCG market. Eric and I were talking about doing this collaborative thing to make this really an exciting video. So you're going to get my whole family, between my wife, she's a singer too, but it's like.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah, a lot of talent in the family. That's cool.
You just want a lawyer, an attorney, somebody.
You could marry one, Destiny can marry a lawyer. No problem.
Plumber would be good. But yes.
Yeah.
By the way, what time is it?
It is currently 8:11.
Okay, cool. Hey, not bad. Just a little over an hour.
Yeah. So you got your next Patreon live is going at 9:00. So different time zones, 50 minutes from now. And you're going to be taking that painting and starting to fill in the detail. And then how many sessions or days do you think it will take to finish that?
Well, tonight's going to be a real brief because obviously we've been on it. Normally I'm on at 7:00. So it's probably going to be 2.5 hours, I figured, tonight. So we're not going to get a whole heck of a lot accomplished. My goal tonight is to put in all of the base. His body color is almost like an olive green with a little bit of a purple and green tint to it. So if I can get those base colors and I can get the head, the body, and the hands in and get that done in the 2.5 hours, that'd be great, because then that's the first of the medium tones. So we have the darks now. We'll put in the mid tone. Then we're going to put the semi-light tone. Finally, the 3 layers of highlights. I think it's probably going to be 20 hours more. So I think 3 episodes. I think 3 sessions, I should get this, 3 to 4 sessions, I should get this finished. Now, a lot of the times in between a Patreon, broadcast, I will take, like, say I finished 70% of a wing. I'm not going to just bring everybody back to have me finish the wing. They've already seen most. I will do that on my own time, get it prepped. Okay, we finished the wings because you guys saw 75% of the wings being finished. So we'll finish the wing, and then the next broadcast will be we're moving on to the cloak or his kilt, which is a kilt. It's a leather kilt. So,
so do you have like a reveal strategy with Eric? Are you going to be revealing these piecemeal, or are you able to say anything on that once the pieces are done?
One I discussed about actually revealing. So everything else is strictly through Patreon.
Gotcha.
So it won't be until probably I'm finished with maybe. Oh, I know what it was. Sorry, I forgot. So what we're going to do when I get about halfway through, I think it's 5. I think we discussed 5 paintings. So when Eric and I get together and we finish the 5 paintings, and I have to select the next one and make sure I have a good sampling. Whatever those are going to be, we will then do like say on the 5th painting, we'll do a public, like, I don't know, Facebook or YouTube, whatever, broadcast where they're going to come in and they can actually, we'll do an episode where it actually is to the public. They're going to see me paint on one of the pictures. And that's kind of just like a sampling of what people get when they go to Patreon, but we're going to do it with Eric, through that. And I just don't know how he plans on hosting that.
Okay. Good idea. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Because we're not going to give a lot away, on this 10 pieces. This is the biggest giveaway you're going to get. Then somewhere down the line in the 5th painting, they'll get to see a part of it, as me working on it. So they'll know what that painting is, but then that's it. So the 1st one, the 5th one, and maybe the last one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's exciting. Yeah, I mean, I was sold immediately. Once they announced you, I was in the Patreon, and I was like, I think it was, again, like maybe the same day or a day later you did your first session. So it's like really cool, guys. Like getting in from the ground floor. This is the very first piece. So you get your money's worth. You get to see all 10. And it's like the alpha came out kind of piecemeal over the past year a little bit, like the different artworks and whatnot. Like Eric was teasing them out, or actually I probably blew it for a lot of, like, some people don't even want to go to my website or my YouTube channel or anything like that. They just want to like open the packs and discover everything anew. But I went on like every single artist's social media and data mined like everything I could possibly find and created like a full art gallery. And then Eric had some stuff on his social media early on with some of the cards and things. But this is definitely a first, and you're the first artist to get like a full dedication mini set per se. Whatever, we'll come to find out what that means.
I think but there's an artist actually. There's this woman that's done the maps.
Yeah, so she did like several pieces in the game pieces, but she also did the backs of the cards. So her map is used as the back of the landscape style cards. Yep. And she also did the packaging, I think, of like you see on the booster box, maybe.
Yeah, very nice stuff. Very nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of, he's even using traditional art for the packaging. Eric's like next level. There's no digital going on, which is beautiful. I love it.
It is amazing, absolutely amazing. But yeah. I can't, Mike, for hosting us tonight, and I know you're not feeling well, and thank you for everything you do for the art community in general. I know the sorcery collectors have been like, thank God we've got a way to connect with the artists. You also respect the artists. You recognize the importance of the hand craftsmanship. You want to preserve those values. That's the other thing too, because we've had a marketplace where a lot of these artists, they're very young. I mean, going back in time, I can remember 25 years ago, I was art director for Origins. And, I'd done that for, I think, 15 years. And I can't tell you how many times I'd come across supposedly seasoned artists who would sell their stuff for peanuts. It's like, guy, you could be working as a bagger at a supermarket and make more money than what you just sold your painting for. What are you doing? So they didn't understand the values. And of course, that doesn't help the collectors either, who have you know, so many people that want to have a piece of something unique and special, and they don't want to buy it for nothing. They don't want to get this thing for like minimum wage. They want to pay a respectful fee that recognizes that they have something of value as well. And it's this concept of trying to educate the new generation that's coming out to say, you know what, you have a skill that very few people have. You're hand painting something that right there puts you in a whole nother level. And to speak to that, so I taught regularly up until, of course, the COVID shutdowns. But I had classes maybe 2-3 times a year. I would go to seminar. But I can tell you this for a fact. When I had 100 students at one time, out of the 100, this is back 94, 96, right? So this is before the digital age came into play. Everyone that came into my class had great skills up here. They all understood light, shade, perspective, anatomy, whatever. They came to the table creative. But when it came to getting it from here to here and being able to have hand-eye coordination, to be able to lay that permanent medium down in the right spot in the right time, you whittled it down to 10%. We got 10 out of every 100. Even though they all had the same thing up here, they couldn't get it to the table, whether it was hand-eye coordination, you know, they shook a little bit, or they just didn't have that kinesiology. And that is huge to get it right the first time. Now, all of a sudden, you move ahead 5 years, 1999, 50% of my class could do all proficient art because you had the digital environment. You could endlessly edit. And then before you know it, everyone could do, as long as they had the creative skill sets up here. So a lot of people would say to me, well, you know, there's really no difference between digital and hand painted as far as the creative aspects. I said, not in the mind. You're absolutely right. They're talented artisans. It's a matter of how can you get it to whatever surface you're working on. And when you work in an environment that says, I have a permanent medium, I got to get it right the first time, or I'm very limited to what I can do to correct it, versus endless editability, it goes back to that tightrope with the net, without the net, and people value that. And it's also a lot harder to find. So I'm amazed that Eric was able to cultivate such an amazing group of 35 artists in this day and age, you know, because we are harder and tougher to find, you know. So that's something you're doing on your platform, you know. And so the Collector Art House is a great place for everybody to go to be introduced to old school techniques with very young people who are resurrecting what has been around for thousands of years, but has now got a place that can finally be treated with respect and seen by thousands of people playing this game. And I say thousands, but I do know this. This has all come out. I have been getting inundated by my followers that used to follow me, you know, Magic players and whatnot, and gamers in general, going, how do I get this product? It looks like it's already been sold. It was a Kickstarter. And you can answer that about the follow-up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, you know, they're intentionally loose with the timeline because they got to get the initial product out the door. I think they're learning how to use what they're learning how to work with their print shop, learning the logistics process of how, because they're printing in China, you know, so there's a whole like customs. They're using a distribution partner to get it out to all the different backers. There was over 6,000 people that backed the Kickstarter. So, and it's all over the world. You know, people are backing. We have a gentleman from Japan on the call here. So he's his time zone worked. All our Europeans are sleeping right now. They'll watch tomorrow, but all over the place. So I think they've loosely said maybe 8 to 10 weeks. I think they'll try to get a follow-up beta set after that. They're calling the Kickstarter alpha. And then we think the follow-up is going to be called beta. It'll be, we don't know like how much will be new. It might largely be a reprint of the alpha, but that is supposed to be able to get it out to so many people. The Kickstarter was last March, I think it was 2022. So it's been almost a year. A lot of people have just learned about the game after that window closed to purchase that product. So there's been a lot of pent up demand and like people, where can I get it? Where can I get it? Why can't I get it? And then like all the people that did buy in, we've been waiting just to get the initial release. So I think like Eric's always had a strategy to try to get the follow-up set out as quickly as possible to meet the growing demand. And certainly, you know, in this industry, a lot of people resell. People will be able to buy like the alpha product on the secondary market, but the players need to get it affordably, and we need to get it in their hands so people could play the game and enjoy the player aspect, and people that missed initially get that opportunity as soon as possible.
So it'll be kind of like an unlimited. When Magic was produced as unlimited, they took the older cards, put them and then reprinted for the map.
I think so. Yeah, there isn't a lot of information, but that's the presumption. Yeah, they haven't rolled out like a detailed roadmap of like what each set contains per se. But I think that's what people are generally expecting. Yep.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I got to get ready for my Patreon, and I'll see all of
Yeah.
those come in, my Patreon members, and maybe even you stopping in. I know you want to see some painting.
Oh yeah.
Hey, give yourself some time though, because I'm going to be 11 o'clock. So if you come in a little later on, you'll start to see the form. But if you're welcome
Okay.
to start right off the bat, it's up to you. But to all my Patreon members, I am going to be on at 9 o'clock. So go look in your inbox for your link. Anyone that's new that wants to join in, that wants to become a member, the second you become a member of my Patreon, it's right up on the screen. We will send you out a link.
Yeah, I'll be watching because I'll have the window open for our Patreon. So if anybody does join during the stream up until about 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I can get you in to watch the broadcast.
And it'll be another one tomorrow, and it'll be at 2 o'clock. Did we do that link yet?
Not yet.
Okay, we got to do that link tonight. So from 2 o'clock tomorrow, probably 5 hours worth. We're just gonna go paint like no one's business. I think 5 hours is the max you can broadcast anyway. So yeah, we're gonna real traction done on this painting tomorrow.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Ed. I really appreciate your time and Destiny for working out our IT problems early on. We pulled it off just in time, I think. So yeah, it's been a pleasure. People, if you want to ever do a follow-up sometime, we didn't get a lot of opportunity for Q&A, but it was great for you to be able to tell your story, show us the incredible van. So everyone's very excited. We can't wait to see your 10 pieces and see you do it in the process. Hopefully a lot of people will get on board with the Patreon and really enjoy that. It's a very unique opportunity.
Yeah, and by the way, Facebook, I'm just my name, Ed Beard JR, and it'll say in parentheses Dragon Lord next to it. Or Fantasy Artist Ed Beard Jr. That's another page I have on Facebook. On Instagram, what am I? Artist Ed Beard Jr.
Yes.
Yeah, Artist Ed Beard Jr. Same thing as on Patreon. So you can always, and of course my website, edbeardjr.com. That's how you get a lot of information. I also have a group on there where I do my news bulletins for like sales and things. And that's also on my edbeardjr.com. So anyways, thanks a lot, Mike. You have a
all right.
See you later on.
Thank you. All right. Sounds good. Take care, guys.
Okay, bye-bye.